Finally, after 2 years of watching 9 seasons of racing, I am done with 2019, which was the final season of my NASCAR race experiment from 2011 to 2019. And unfortunately, 2011 started off really well, started off the experiment really well, and was full of great racing. 2019 was the complete opposite, and honestly, I was shocked at how much I didn't like some of the races. Um, and I found some things that I just couldn't believe about it. Um, so 2019 is one of the most controversial seasons of NASCAR. I've said that about 2018 as well, but 2019 is very controversial in the fact that after 2018 they changed the package, got rid of 200 horsepower, and added on about 6 inches of spoiler. Um, Drivers didn't necessarily like it. It seems as if after the next gen, announcement of the package, that drivers were maybe holding back on saying their true feelings. Some of them, obviously, some of the more veteran drivers like Kevin Harvick or Kyle Busch, spoke out against it, but some of the younger drivers never really spoke out against it. But it seems like a majority of them, not all of them, did not like the package that was run. So in 2019, they ran that 8-inch spoiler everywhere. At some tracks where they ran the 8-inch spoiler, they also ran 750 horsepower that was reserved for tracks under a mile in length. Also, I think, I guess the short track shorter than Darlington. So anything under 1.3 miles ran 750 horsepower in an 8-inch spoiler, along with road courses, and then anything Darlington or over ran 8 inches in 550 horsepower. Which ended up creating quite a mess for a lot of tracks, as is seen when you look at the race rankings. Something that 2019 improved on greatly over 2018 was the Super Speedway product. All 4 Super Speedway races ranked 83 or higher. In fact, one of the Super Speedway races held the best race of the season. That was the Talladega Chase race, Talladega playoff race, which got a 93 out of 100 for me. It actually tied with Bristol, but I gave the edge to Talladega. I felt like that was the better race overall when compared to the Bristol night race. But when you look at the good stuff from the season, it's not that terrible. It had 6 great races, which is pretty. I mean, that's pretty good, if I'm not mistaken. 2018 didn't have many more than that. Yeah, 2018 had 7 great races. So I mean, overall, I mean they had pretty much the same amount of great races. And 2019 has some of the most great races when you look at stats, but when you delve deeper and you go into the bad races and even the good races, that's where it starts to get interesting. 2019, in my opinion, only really ever had 9 good races. A good race for me is 76 or higher, and then that also gets up into great races. I only have 9 races that were ranked 76 or higher. The Talladega playoff race, the Bristol night race, the first Kansas race, Chicagoland, the first Talladega race, the first Bristol race, the 2 Daytona races, and Darlington. Those are the only races I consider good throughout the season. Vegas and Charlotte and Glen and the other Vegas and another Kansas and Roval, they were some average races. But the big killer in all this are the races that I thought were bad. I thought 10 races were bad. I didn't even remember how much I didn't necessarily like 2019. I thought 10 races were bad. That is by far the most. I think 2015 had, what, 8 or so? 2019 had 10. Phoenix, Texas in the playoffs, Indianapolis, Homestead, the first Dover, Richmond in the playoffs, Phoenix in the playoffs, Sonoma, Dover in the playoffs, and the first Pocono race. I mean I don't know what to say. And when you average all 36 races out, the average race rating 62.6 out of 100. That is the lowest of any of the 9 seasons that I watched. 2015 I thought would easily take that crown at a 63.8, but 2019 is a full 1.2 lower than 2015. Something I couldn't even believe. As much as I did not like 2019 at all, I thought it would be much better than 2015 and rank somewhere probably around 2017, 2018, somewhere, in the 66s, 67s. I thought it was going to rank up around there, but it's down in 62.6. I couldn't believe it. I went into the season watching 2019, knowing I was like, all right, I might not like this, but I'm going to have an open mind. And for a while, that open mind worked out. There were some races that I ranked a lot better than I had originally thought. The Atlanta race improved from 2018. The first Vegas race improved. Fontana improved. Bristol was a great race. Chicagoland and Kansas were really good. Charlotte improved upon its race. But there were just so many tracks that really, really got hurt because of the package. Both Dover races were terrible. Both Phoenix races were not good. Richmond had some races and one really bad race. Martinsville had two races. A track which normally has at least a good race, if not a great race. Kentucky improved because of the finish, but there were a lot of tracks that just dropped in ranking, mostly because of the package, which was really unfortunate. A lot of the things that I wrote about the races, you could physically see the dirty air in a lot of the races, which was not good. Also, would get pretty annoying at Texas seeing them run wide open around the track. Just not fun. Now, when you average out in terms of the track types, something 2019 did accomplish. 2019, the whole reason they changed the package was to try and make intermediate races a lot better. Well, they did that. Intermediate average was a 68.3. That's the highest since 2015, ironically. 2015 has the second best intermediate average of all 9 seasons, which is kind of shocking to me. And its average is like 70 point something. In fact, 2019 actually ties with 2012 for the third best average on intermediate tracks, only getting beat by 2011 and 2015. So they improved the intermediate product for sure, especially over the previous season. Remember, 2018 was a 68.3. 2018's was a 63.5. 2017's was a 58.1. Even 2016 a 62.8. So the intermediate product did improve. It just wasn't. All the other races that hurt. Short ovals were down to a 41.0 on its average, right? That is terrible. The drop off from 2018 on short ovals to 2019 is insane. 2018 with a 41.0. 2018 at a 71.0, 2017 at 61.3, 62.3 in 2016. 41.0, I think that might be the lowest on short ovals in any of the seasons. 2015 at a 44. That is the lowest on short ovals. So the short tracks really got hurt. 68.7 short track average, I think, is the worst. Worst for any season. Only one coming close to it is 2015 was a 69.5. Super Speedway's got an 87 average. That is, I think, the best since 2014. Maybe the best besides 2014 on this list. Besides 2014 and 2011 again. It's the best. So they fixed some problems, but they really, really hurt the more unique tracks, which was a big shame, and really just kind of hurt the season like it did. I will say the races that I enjoyed watching, I really enjoyed watching. Talladega, Bristol, Kansas, Chicagoland, Talladega, Bristol, all really good races. Even the two Daytonas in Darlington. I thought, Darlington was going to be a little bit worse, but it was at least competitive, and you could see the drivers having to drive the cars. Even Las Vegas, the Las Vegas playoff race, I didn't remember liking that race when I first watched it, but I watched it back, I was like, oh my god, there's tire fall off, you could pass, you could use different lanes. I really enjoyed that one. The Coke 600 was a decent race, even though it was extremely long because of the package and the cautions that came out, but it was not too bad. So after all 9 seasons that I've watched, I will make a video regarding what I found in terms of averages and stuff like that, where each season ranks in terms of each other, how the tracks rank. I was very interested in seeing how the average ranking of tracks worked out for all 24. I kind of didn't include the Charlotte Roval because it only had 2 races and it would have ranked inside the top 5, which I thought was unfair. So I kind of put it as a non-applicable, but I still kept the average and stuff like that so you could see. But I have all this stuff kind of done out. I have 2011 and from 2019, the average and the best and worst race from each season. I have the track and the average, and then the best and worst race from each track within this range. I have the 10 best races of 2011 to 2018, 10 worst races of 2011 to 2019. So I'll probably make a big video kind of doing stuff like the year average and the track averages, and then I might make videos just separate based off of the 10 best races from 2011, 2019, the 10 worst races. Just to try and, I don't know, do something with that stuff, because some of the stuff is interesting. I really like the track ranking to see how that goes, and I thought it was quite interesting seeing some of that. But overall, 2019, a really, really big surprise. I was actually dumbfounded whenever whenever I saw just how bad it was. And really, I think it only got bad because of the playoffs. I think the playoffs really, really hurt it. So you think about the playoffs. What's the first round? It's Vegas, Richmond, and the Roval. Well, Vegas was a 74, so not bad. Richmond was, though, a 36, and the Roval was a 69. So it was a mediocre first round. Um, then you go to the second round, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the second round is then Dover, Talladega, and Kansas. So Dover was a 29. That is the second worst race of the season. Talladega really good at 93, and then Kansas was a 69. So once again, just a kind of mediocre round. And then you go to the next round, which was Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. 67 for Martinsville. Texas, a 48. Phoenix, a 31. That was a bad round. And then you go to Homestead, 43. That is the first Homestead race I've ever ranked bad. I think the lowest Homestead race before this was like a 73 in 2015, maybe a 71. It was somewhere around the low 70s, and I gave this one a 43 just because there was nothing happening. It just wasn't good. It's not like it wasn't. It's not like I'm going like, oh, I wanted a caution at the end just so that there could be the championship four and the restart package, blah blah blah. It's just it wasn't good. There was not good racing. There was very minimal passing. Any passing that happened, we didn't see because all they focused on was the championship four. And it wasn't as good as previous Homestead races. And that could be said for a lot of the races that I ranked bad. It just wasn't as good as previous races that you've seen because of probably the package, which is quite a shame. Because I don't know. I just thought it would be a little bit better. I'm very, very shocked that it was worse than 2015. After watching 2015, seeing some of those races and how low they ranked, I mean, listen, 2015 had 5 races ranked under a 30, and it still beat out 2019. And the big reason is because it still had good races. I mean, 2015 had 12 races that I ranked as good, while 2019, once again, had only 9. So that really hurt it. People say about this package, it either produces really, really good races or really bad races, very few in between. That's kind of true. 2019, 6 great races, but 10 bad races. And then I also had a lot of meh races. Loudon was a race that I thought was kind of just along with Kentucky and the 2 Michigans. And then Fontana was on the brink of that. Pocono and the Martinsvilles and Richmond. Average races, there were a lot of those, but they don't, when they're average, they barely help the ranking. When the ranking is sitting around 67, 68, if you give a race a 69, it's not going to bump up the ranking that much. It's going to maybe like 0.1, if that, 0.05. It's not going to bump it up that much. So you need good races and great races. Great races really help, and that helps 2019. Imagine if some of these great races weren't here. It would be under a 60, right? So it needed more good races. It needed more races up in the higher 70s. It only had one race in the higher 70s, Darlington, 77. It's not going to be a good season if you only have that, and then you have a bunch of average races. It had some good 70s races, like the Vegas playoff race in Charlotte and Watkins Glen in the first Vegas race, but it had way too many in the 60s, which just basically keeps the average right around where it was. If the average is a 65, a 66 or a 67, a 68 is not going to bump it up. If it's a 65, you need something like a 79 or an 80. There were not a lot of low 80s either. The only one was the Daytona 500, which really only got put in the low 80s because of the final 10 laps where it was very embarrassing. I felt like before that, it was a solid 85 or 84. Around the mid-80s. So what this season was really missing was good races, good solid races. It didn't have many of those. It only had a few. If you take out the first 6 great races, the only number of races that I ranked as good, was 1, 2, 3. I only ranked 3 as good races. So, yeah, that's what 2019 was missing. It had way too many bad races and not enough good races to kind of combine and kind of just counter it. It had great races to counter the bad races, like the 23 from Pocono gets countered by the 93 from Talladega. The 29 from Dover gets countered by the 93 from Bristol. The 30 from Sonoma gets countered by the 88 from Kansas, or the 31 from Phoenix, the 87 at Chicagoland. The 36, the 38 gets counted, the 87s, a lot of those in the 30s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 races were ranked 40 or lower, which counterbalance this with the 6 great races. But then you have the races in the 40s. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 3 good races. And then you have a lot of races that were right near the 40s, like the 2 Michigans and Kentucky. And they don't get balanced by anything because there's not enough good races. So that's what the package was really missing. It had its moments at tracks like Chicagoland and tracks like Kansas. Even the Vegas playoff race. But didn't have enough of those to counteract the really bad races that it produced, and that was the unfortunate part of the season. A season which I really, really thought would be a lot better than what I ranked it. 62.6. I expected it at least 5 points higher, if not more. It just didn't deliver. It just did not do what I thought it was going to do, and I was honestly disappointed in the ranking after being done with the season. Rarely do I check the ranking during the season because I feel like that will make me want to help it or hurt it, depending on how I already feel about the season. I don't feel like doing that, right? I don't feel like looking at the average. I do it a little bit throughout the season. Like after the first maybe 10 or so races, I'm like, all right, where's the season at in terms of ranking? Oh, okay, there it is. Like I looked at it I think I looked at it before we got to like the Poconos and stuff like that, where the summer stretch kind of really hurt it. I think I looked at after the 600, and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad at all. It was up around, I think it was up in like the 69s, 69, 68. So I was like, this actually ain't too bad. Then we got to the second half of the season, and it took a drop. So I guess my advice if you want to watch 2019 is basically the opposite of 2018. If you want to watch 2018, skip the Fox portion and go straight to NBC. If you want to watch 2019, skip the late NBC portion and go watch the first half of the season. Watch up until like Daytona and then stop there. Watch up until the Daytona July race and then stop there because there were not many races after that which were very, very good. You had obviously the Bristol night race, the Southern 500, and I guess the Talladega playoff race are really the 3 ones that you could say after that were good enough to watch. So yep, that's it. This experiment is over. My plan is to maybe watch some older seasons. I was thinking 2010 because I first started watching in 2010. My first race ever was the 2010 Daytona 500 that I watched on TV. I went to my first ever race, the Elliott Sadler Pocono crash in 2010. But I don't remember much from it because I didn't watch many races. I watched a handful of races, So I would really like to go back and watch that because I also feel like that's a pretty solid season as well. So I'd like to see how that season looks on paper and what I would give the race rankings there. So I might go do that just kind of leisurely, casually, because it would be nice to watch races where you don't know what's going to happen during them. Whereas in 2018, I'm like, oh yeah, this happens and this happens. Like I kind of knew some of the flow of some of the races. Some of them I was like, oh yeah, I didn't remember that at all. But when you watch like races that you've never watched before, you're gonna be like, oh my god, I didn't realize that happened, or why doesn't this get talked about? So yeah, that's it for my experiment. I'll have more videos out describing, how the seasons rank to each other and how the tracks rank. So that will be fun. Thanks for watching my review of 2019. Not a very good season. I'll see you guys next time.